All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live. Jessica is going to give us a link real quick so we can share it on some extra platforms. And then we will get going.
Yeah, we are all set. It looks like. Just let me go and share the link.
Okay, I think I've got it. Hang on.
Yeah, maybe in the meantime, maybe you can start. Yeah.
All right. So, Jessica, can you give us the link to share on all of our pages? In the meantime, hello, everyone. Welcome to our live language tips sharing, caring group. So, today we're talking with Jessica, Joe, and Simone about how we can learn languages. We're talking with Jessica, Joe, and
Yeah, we can listen and echo, so maybe you can mute your phone.
Why am I hearing myself?
Because someone else.
It's freaking me out. Ah.
Okay, guys, I dropped the link in the chat in the live, so you can.
And I'm finishing the blurb about Simone. So 1 second.
Guys, I dropped the link in the chat in the live, so you can.
Okay.
And I'm finishing the blurb about. Okay, so what's happening that's causing it to echo?
I think it's the Facebook link.
Is everybody gonna echo like this? What's happening that's causing it to echo?
Yeah, I think someone needs to mute the screen in Facebook.
So I'm not on Facebook. It's not me. But
okay.
Let me try my headphones and see if that stops it for everybody.
Okay.
So I'm not on Facebook. It's not me. Okay.
Yeah, it's all the technical things that happens on the first time that you are doing something, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm still hearing me, so it's not me.
I don't have it open.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's got to be Jessica or Joe.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
great.
Okay, that's
Awesome.
better.
Okay, so let's start, girls. I'm so excited.
All right. So let me put in the chat here the links to all of our groups. Guys, if you're watching this live or if you're watching it later, there will be links to 4 different websites, and we'll tell you about those as we go along. So today, let's start by introducing, taking a quick second for everybody to introduce themselves. Jessica, can you start, please?
Yes. Okay, so hello, everybody. My name is Jessica Mirai, and I live in Tokyo, Japan. I'm a Japanese teacher, and I'm super excited to be here.
Woot woot! That is fabulous. And while the rest of us are introducing ourselves, we would love to know where you guys are from too. So if you could drop in the comments something telling us where you are from, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, like to know where you're watching this live. Will be amazing, right?
Wouldn't that be cool?
That's really
awesome. Cool. So let's see. Joe, you are next. Our guest, one of our guests for the day. Can you introduce yourself?
I can. So I'm Joe. I'm here in New Zealand, far south, and I am an English language teacher. I'm a little bit of a language learner, but not much, because I did a very terrible job of that. Not like you lovely ladies. So I'm an English language teacher, and I have a lovely, lovely group, a speaking group of women who want to practice speaking English. They're from all around the world, and I can see quite a few of them on here already. It's so nice. So Tro and Sarah.
Yeah,
Kavita,
hello to everybody that's
yeah.
watching.
Oh, lovely new person. I think it's, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I'm sure I'll meet you soon. So we have a few lovely ladies here from India, Kurdistan, Azerbaijan. So welcome, ladies. Nice to have you here.
Oh,
And
that is so
yeah.
cool.
So this is something different for us. We usually at this time of the day we're having our one of our Zoom meetings where the ladies come and have a chat. So this is something different. They can listen to us
so
chatting.
nice.
So yeah,
That is so
welcome,
cool.
ladies, and thank you so much, you guys, for doing this. It's a really nice idea.
Yes, thank you.
So, Simone, can you tell us about you?
Yes, so my name is Simone. I am Danish and I grew up both in Denmark and in Germany. So I grew up bilingual, and then later on I moved to Los Angeles, and now I've been living in Denmark for the past, I don't know how many years, decade or so. Well, this is more than a decade, but yeah, whatever.
Wow.
And yeah, so I've been teaching German for 14 years now. And I used to correct the ninth graders' exams. I was hired by the state to correct them for 9 years, and I just quit last year. So yeah, so I've been doing this language game for a long time. I've also taught English because, yeah, it's language like teaching is very similar. And so I grew up in Danish, German, and English schools. So I grew up with all three languages. So I figured it would make sense to teach English as well. And I've taught everyone from like regular schools to schools for kids with like autism, ADHD, some criminals as well.
Nice.
And I've also taught future ambassadors, and I actually taught the security's former security head of security back in the day. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been
That would be
teaching very
crazy.
widely and differently. So yeah. Yeah, and now I moved on to coaching, but I still do a little bit of teaching every once in a while because, yeah, it's kind of fun.
That is really neat.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
I guess I should introduce myself. I didn't think about
You
that.
should, Janet.
Yeah, maybe. So I'm Janet Wallmeyers. I have a YouTube channel, Janet's Home for English. I work as a English teacher. English is a second language. And in the past, I've done private tutoring, and I love languages. So language teaching makes sense to me because I, like Joe, was not successful initially as a language learner. I struggled and I cried and I got horrible grades and I was miserable.
I got good grades.
I did not.
But I couldn't speak a word. I great grades. My grammar, fantastic. Vocabulary, very good. I just couldn't speak at all. So you guys are way more successful than I am.
I couldn't really do anything.
Oh.
So I would say you were ahead of me. But that's what we're talking about today is tips for learning languages. So that maybe through our struggles, you will have an easier time.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So we're going to talk and we're going to give you some tips that we've learned along the way. And then at the end, we've received a couple of questions that we're going to talk about as a group.
Okay.
So Jessica, can you start us out and give us some of your tips?
Yes, of course, girl. Okay, maybe this one. Okay, well, as you know, I'm here in Japan. Obviously, I'm a Japanese guy. I like to call me like a guide coach. because more than a teacher, and it's because of all these all the path that I have been following in order to be able to live in Japan because I'm not Japanese. So it took me a long time, a lot of years to master the language, and then to be able to find a job and to be here. So in order to do that, as you said, like the learning a language could be very frustrating. To tell you the truth, in my case, my mother tongue is Spanish. So if you compare it with the Japanese that had pictograms in order to be able to write and to read, this was like awful, awful. But help
Wow.
me that this is my tip number one is align my hobbies with my language learning. Why?
Mm.
Because when you are studying a language, okay, there's some points in your life when you think you are going to give up. You are going to give up. But if in some way you make your hobbies to be together with your language learning, that will motivate you. That will motivate you in the future. For example, for me, is the anime. The anime, all anime stuff was it's my hobby and it was my motivation to learn Japanese. But to tell you the
Mhm.
truth, guys, like usually for the Japanese students, let me tell you, if there are Japanese students that don't like anime, it doesn't need to be anime. It could be anything. It could be golf. It could be tennis. It could be soccer. Everything that you have a hobby at, you have the same thing in Japanese. And you can start learning the language, looking at your hobbies in the language, in the target language that you want to learn, right?
Mhm.
That's tip number one. Tip number two, guys. I have a question everybody's always asking me. How long did it take you to learn Japanese? And I always say the same thing. It depends on the person. It depends on your ability to learn the language. Many things. You cannot compare with any other person. So don't compare yourself with any other person when you're learning a language. Plus, you need to understand which type of language method do you have. It's useful for you to learn. For example, for me, in Japan, there's a learning method, or the teachers have a teaching method that is very specific. And usually in my home country, they were using that same method. But for me, I'm a visual person, and this
Mm.
method was useless, to tell you the truth. It,
Oh
it, it took
man.
me, it took me like many years to realize that I'm visual person. And in order to learn the kanjis, even though I like to write kanjis, the kanjis were not like writing the kanjis 1,000 times. It was not the best idea to learn it. In fact, what I look for, there are visual cards in which it has all the kanjis, and I wrote one kanji in my pocket every day to learn the kanjis. And every day I was taking out and checking the kanji, what's the meaning, useful sentence for it. That way, until I learned that I was a visual person and I focused all my learning methods to that specific method, then I start to learn. And it was like,
Ah.
wow, it was a game changer, guys. So, I mean, people need to understand that they have different learning methods and they need to incorporate that into their daily learning studies like methods.
And
Yeah.
Jessica, you made a YouTube video about that.
Yes, yes, yes. I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a video in my YouTube channel at the Japanita. If you want to learn Japanese, maybe you can take a look at my channel, the Japanita. So
Yeah.
and
Definitely make sure you post the link.
yeah, of course,
Um,
I will drop the link in the comment section. And
yeah.
also another thing that I want to mention is about the learning environment. I think that every student needs to create their own learning environment. Thankfully, now in nowadays, the technology is super useful. So we can create our environment through joining groups in Facebook. Also, one tip for the people that are learning Japanese, please look for Twitter. In Japanese, don't use Facebook to connect, to interact. You need to go to Twitter. That's a very interesting point. I don't know, Joe or Simone, because we are all in different countries. Each country has, in each country they use different platforms to communicate, right? Like in my case, like people usually think that it's Facebook, but no, usually you need to look in the target language of the country that you want to learn that language, what platform, what social media they are using to communicate between each other, right?
Exactly.
So if you want to connect with the Japanese, then I highly recommend that you go to Twitter and make a Twitter account and start writing in Japanese, even in hiragana, katakana, whichever level you are.
Wow. I would never have thought about that.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So they always tell me, like, which Facebook group can I join so I can talk with the Japanese? No, they are not in Facebook. They are in Twitter.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
I've noticed that Chinese speakers for learning Chinese, they are also not on Facebook. If you want to find them, you go to WeChat.
Very few.
Very few. China, that's
I don't think we have anybody from Japan in our women's group. We've got 600 and something people in the group, and I'm not aware of any from Japan that have come up.
Yeah, it's
Twitter.
Definitely unusual. But now you know Twitter.
Yes,
Twitter is their
Japanese
place.
Twitter, Japanese is Twitter. and sorry, my last tip is about your best hours of studying. Because
that is a great tip. That was my favorite from your video.
It's about your biological clock. I mean, have you ever seen, like, whenever you woke up, there are sometimes that you put your alarm, your clock, in the morning, and sometimes you wake up even if you don't put your clock, like your body is already used to that, right? To wake up at the same time, and you're like, or even 1 second before the alarm starts to ring, like you're awake. So the same thing is called, like, when you are learning a language, there are some times in the day in which you are more efficient learning, and you can realize, because sometimes you are just like, So, for example, for me, my more efficient hours to learn is in the morning time, like right now. If I were to learn a language, I will wake up really early and start reading a book or whatever I do to learn. So if I try to do this at 12, maybe after the lunch, I will be like,
That's what would happen if I would try in the morning.
Yeah. Okay. So they are night people. Like, I cannot at night. Also, I cannot. But at 6 p.m. in the evening, maybe it's okay. But morning for me is best. So you need to check at which time of the day you are more efficient to learn a language.
Most definitely, yeah.
And that's it, girls.
So everybody, post in the comments and let us know which you are. Are you a morning person? Are you a night owl? When do you learn best? And I'm curious. So Jessica's a morning. I'm a night. So Joe, Simone, what are you?
Late night.
Late nights.
Lately, and girls in my group know this, I've been burning the candle at both ends. So that means you're working early and late. So, but Jessica, what time is it, Jessica, in Japan at the moment?
Right now it's 5:22 a.m. in Japan.
Yeah, she's a real morning person.
Yeah, like it's amazing how we are from different countries. Yeah, in different parts of the world.
It's actually different dates for us as well. Yeah.
Right?
For you it's September, and for us it's still August.
Yeah. We're in the future. We're in the future.
Wow, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can tell us. That's why she has such great tips.
Yeah, so yeah, here in New Zealand, it's the first day of spring today.
Wow, really?
September 1st. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Here it's starting to feel a little bit more like fall.
Is it?
Yeah, here too.
So,
Opposite.
so Joe, what tips do you have for us?
I was thinking about this because I've been really focused on speaking lately. I'm just really got very, very interested in the idea of how to help people to speak. I've been teaching English for ages, like 20 something years. And I studied all about teaching English and got qualified a long time ago. And the thing that made me really excited going, right, I've got to do something about this was last year. And this is so embarrassing. You know, as I said to you, I'm not a very good language learner. So I got good grades. I studied French in high school. I studied Italian at university. I've studied a little bit of Spanish, just like using apps and things like that, and listening, because I had some Colombian students, beautiful Colombian students here in New Zealand. And so I used to listen to them a lot, and I could understand them a little bit and gave them a few frights when I was listening to their conversations. So I knew a bit of Spanish, and I can speak a little bit of Thai because I lived in Thailand when I was young, 22, I think. Amazing. But I've never really, like for French, Italian, and Spanish, I've never had the opportunity to speak. So I know quite a lot of French. I can read French a little bit, and I can understand quite a bit. And same with Spanish. I can, you know, if I'm watching a movie or reading a book or reading signs and menus, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm, you know, low intermediate kind of level probably. But then last year, trip of a lifetime, it was so exciting. My husband and I went to Spain for a holiday. We were visiting some friends, and we went to Spain for a little holiday, and we went to Paris for a weekend. It was so beautiful. But it was so terrible. I couldn't speak a word. I could, you know, my pronunciation was quite good, so I could sort of say hello, you know, and then they'd ask me a question. I'd go, oh, I don't know. You know, I couldn't do anything. It was just terrible, and I was so embarrassed. And the worst thing was that I was so busy trying to remember like the correct verb to use, and what verb ending do I need here? And I was thinking like that. My brain was going like this, and my husband's going, "You can't even speak English at the moment. What's wrong with you?" He thought it was really funny. So,
like a meltdown.
Yeah, absolutely. My brain just was going crazy, and I was trying to remember the correct word and trying to remember the grammar and make it perfect and make sure I was pronouncing everything right. And I just couldn't speak at all. And it was just really embarrassing for a language teacher. I just thought, oh my goodness, this is that. So after that, and it made me think, because I had quite a few students who really struggled with speaking in New Zealand. They would come and you knew they could understand, but they would just be quite silent. And there actually is a very, very well documented stage in language learning. That's the silent phase, that you just listen and you read and you listen and you read and you listen, and then finally you're ready for speaking. So I was thinking about that and going, well, how can I help people get out of that silence? Because it feels awful. You feel like, I don't know, like you're in a coma or there's something wrong with you, you know, because the world's going on and you can't contribute, you can't interact. And so that was when I decided, right, I want to focus on speaking and focus on helping people who have some language already to be able to speak, because lots of people have studied English for years. They studied all the way through school, they studied it at university, but they can't speak. And I just thought, yeah, it's a horrible feeling to have all of that lovely knowledge and then you can't speak. So that's my real passion, is trying to help people to speak. And my big tip for you is that you cannot learn to speak unless you speak. That's why I can't speak French. I can't speak Italian, a tiny little bit. I went to Italy a long time ago for 10 days. And after 10 days, I was starting to speak. But 3 nights in Paris is not going to get you speaking French. You have to speak. You need to move your mouth and actually physically form those words. You can't just kind of read it and think it. It's got to come out of your mouth. So that's my big tip. So you can practice speaking by yourself, definitely, and practice reading aloud. It's a good thing to do, definitely, especially because sometimes we're practicing and we're focusing on something like some grammar tip or something, or pronunciation. And nobody wants to listen to you when you're practicing saying all the words you can think of that start with TH and going, nobody wants to listen to that. You've got to practice that alone. Right. But you also need people to practice with. So you need a combination. Practice the grammar, practice all the forms of, you know, how many sentences in the passive voice, or, oh, I want to practice using present perfect tense or something. Practice that by yourself. But then you need people to talk to. Really talking, and it's what Jessica was saying, something interesting to talk about. So that's a great idea, Jessica, of talking about your hobbies. What are you interested in? So you need people to talk to, and you need something to talk about. And that's what we try to do in our speaking group. And we, you know, the women who come, we have Zoom meetings quite regularly, and the women who come, and lots of them are here. And yeah, thank you very much for listening, ladies. Yeah. It's so lovely that you're here. So that's my big thing. Find people to talk to, move your mouth. If you want to speak, then you better speak, because it's not going to happen any other way. What do you?
That's true. Like for me, always, like when I was learning a language, also in my classroom, we didn't speak Japanese. We were speaking Spanish, and that was not that helpful. So I think that this is a key point, right? To talk nowadays we have a lot of opportunities to talk with people outside our country. So use those tools, right? Use the tools to talk about what you like in the language that you want to learn. Amazing tip.
Yeah, that's great.
Only way to do it. And I know from personal experience, because I have a few languages that I can't use it.
It's so true.
It is. It really is. So Simone, what about you? What tips do you have?
Yes. Well, for me, I want to add on to what you just said, because it's so true. For me, I always kind of compare it to, if you want to go to the gym and you want to work out for a marathon or an Ironman, or you want abs like that pop off, you can't go to the gym once and expect it to work out. Like, learning a language is like working towards a marathon or something like that. You need to do it a couple of times a week, and you need to keep at it. As soon as you like stop or just do it once a week, it's not going to work. You need to stick with it. Like, so whenever people reach out to me like, yeah, I want 1 hour a week or half an hour a week, I'm like, you're not serious. I'm not going to work with you. I'm sorry. Like that's not going to work. Like, you're not going to learn a language by speaking it 1 hour a week. So think of it as you need to be dedicated. Otherwise it's not going to happen. So think of it like with a marathon or gym or something. If you don't go to the gym, you're not getting the abs. Like, it's as simple as that. So if you want to do it, stick with it. Find a routine that works for you. Like you said, what time of day works for you? Do you have some friends you can talk to, Facebook groups, whatever works. So that's definitely my first recommendation. Then to add on a little bit to Jessica's, the learner types, it's so important for me as a teacher, like especially because I work with children with special needs, like with autism and ADHD and that kind of stuff. Some of them were super visual, and others I had to take for a walk because they had to move while learning. So find your learner type. Do you listen? Do you speak? Do you read? Do you need colors? Do you need something to play with? Do you need to move while learning? What is your learner type? Figure that out and integrate that into your learning. When I have new students, I try and go through most of it to kind of figure it out. And then also there's like this old thing about right and left side of the brain. So if you need to learn something by heart, you need to like do cross movements while repeating it to yourself so that the brain parts connect and you remember it better. Yeah, I had Latin for 5 years, so there's a lot of learning. Yeah, so we would always have to like do these weird things while saying the all of these like grammatical stuff. That's also a really good example of you need to stick with it. I had Latin for 5 years, like, And back then, I was amazing at it. And I actually understood quite a bit of Italian. I had Italian boyfriends, so yeah.
Good motivation.
A huge help, yeah.
That's another thing once you have a boyfriend.
Exactly. It
It
was such a great help. I mean, it was delicious food. Don't get me wrong, that was amazing. But their parents didn't always they often only spoke Italian at home. So it was really helpful for me to have Latin. But Latin is quite literally a dead language. We had it in school, we would read it, we would translate it, but we never spoke it. And because we never spoke it, I can't remember a word today. I remember some of the grammar, but I don't remember any of it today because, again, I didn't use it and I didn't speak it. So it's really important that you don't just learn, but you also speak as well. Which kind of brings me to my next tip. What I do with my students is I have these colored cards where I printed out the 10 to 50 most common verbs, adjectives, and nouns in the language they're learning. And then we kind of do it a bit like memory kind of style. So they draw one from each, and then they have to build a sentence from that. So one card may say chair, one may say walk, and one may say tall. And then you have to create a sentence, which would be, I'm tall and I'm walking to the chair to sit down. And the further they are, the longer the sentences will be and the more complex it will be. But this is a really great way to help them speak because often they're scared. What should I say? What should I do? And so giving them a few key words that they can then piece together into a sentence has really helped my students quite a lot. So I really enjoy using that. Also gives it kind of like a gamey feel, and you add the colors for the visual learner, and so that's a really great one for me.
That's awesome.
And then thank you, I love that.
And
then finally,
I want to say that the fear is one of the things that most students have when they are learning another language, right? Fear is what stops us to be doing things, right? And definitely what you say, Simone, that's a great idea. Don't be paralyzed by the fear of you not being able to speak or something like that, right? Find ways like this.
Because it's our role as a teacher to give them this comfort zone, to make them feel comfortable and that everything here is safe and okay for them to say. Don't be scared. For a long time, people would ask if I would come and teach at their home. And I said no, because I wanted them to come to my home because then it's a different setting and a different place.
Yes.
And as soon as they walk into my apartment, they know this is a safe zone. This is where they can speak German or English and make as many mistakes as they want to. So that really works for me.
Safety is key.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah, I think that's one of my first things always, when I was teaching in a classroom, it's what's the most important thing here is making everyone feel really welcome, really safe, and that this is an okay place to make mistakes and no one's allowed to laugh if you sometimes we laugh together when we make mistakes because we do make lots of mistakes when we're trying a new language and it's funny to laugh.
We make mistakes as well.
Yeah, they're great.
Right?
You can't laugh at somebody. That's not okay. And, that's why I love my sisters group because there's just such fabulous people. Just every single person is welcoming and helpful. And if someone's a beginner, then other people practice with them and help them out. And it's just beautiful.
Sounds great.
So important.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. Yeah. And then my final tip is what I call the comfort zones within learning. Is that the language that you use in your everyday life is the easiest to learn first in the new language because it's so close to your everyday life. So let's say I play soccer in my free time. I don't. I used to be a soccer coach, but I don't play soccer anymore. Or I never actually did. I'm not sure. But let's say the guy I'm teaching right now plays soccer. That's why I'm thinking of it. So everything around soccer will be a lot easier for him to talk about because in Danish, it's already a vocabulary that he's very comfortable with. If we talk German history with World War II and the Berlin Wall, that's when it gets super difficult because it's so far out of his everyday life. So I kind of think of it as comfort zone. So you have your your food, your daily routines, your hobbies, and the inner comfort zone. Then there's maybe what you do for work and something, and then you move out a little bit further. Then there's like politics, what you saw on TV, like something like that. And then to like literature, and the further out you get, the more difficult it gets. So you want to start in the narrow circle, which is the words you use in your everyday life. So start learning those, because that's going to be a lot easier for you. And a lot of those often have a bit, like, depending on where you're from, if it's European languages, there's often a lot of similarities. English as well. Like, I mean, in Danish, it's called stol. In German, it's called Stuhl. It's not that far apart. It's a chair, but like, yeah. So in English, it's very different, but in Danish and German, we have a very
because
similar.
we have stool as well.
We do.
Yes, for the stool.
Words that are similar.
So it's always like, if you're in doubt, you can always kind of try and go with the native word you have and kind of add the rest on and see if people will understand and help correct you. But start in your comfort zone and then slowly move out. Don't start with the history and the weird novels and like, yeah, because then you're just gonna get overwhelmed and
yeah, that can't go well.
No, so yeah, but those are my tips on how
That's
to learn
awesome.
languages.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Janet.
So my turn for tips. So going along with the theme of speaking, my first tip would be to do the thing you're afraid of and get it done. If you're most afraid of speaking, speak. Speak the minute you get done watching this video, speak, if that's what you're afraid of. If you are afraid of reading, when you're done with this video, pick up an easy book, read. Right now in Spanish, I'm reading the Magic Treehouse series that's made for like 7-year-olds. Because I've been very intimidated, honestly, by reading. So my tip number 1 is do the thing you're afraid of, so you won't have to be afraid anymore.
Yep.
My first time that I tried to speak Spanish on an app, which our next video like this is going to be talking about language learning apps. But I tried on one, and somebody sent me an audio chat, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was absolutely terrified. Like, I took a video of me, like I was so proud that I was gonna do it, that I took a video of myself making my first audio to a person. And now I'm not afraid, and I do it all through the day. I use the language learning apps, and I'm always talking to somebody in generally Spanish. My Arabic and my Chinese are not high enough to benefit much from those apps yet. But in Spanish, I'm doing that all through the day, because now that I've done the hard thing, the scary thing, it's not scary anymore, and I'm free. And that was a big one for me, because I've been trying to learn Spanish for over 20 years. And most of that time, I was stuck. The person that I learned Spanish with, I had to move away from her. And so I didn't have my practice partner. I didn't have the opportunities to speak like you guys talked about. And the places that I did try to speak weren't safe places. They were like I would try at the Mexican restaurant. Well, they're not people who are learning English. They're like, you're super vulnerable because you're talking to them. They're not vulnerable at all talking to you. So it's not really a safe place for an exchange necessarily. But a few, maybe like 4 months ago, I started doing language exchanges where people who are learning English partner with people learning another language. And so you're equal, so it's safe. You can't, they don't want to laugh at you because you might laugh back at them. So they understand what you're feeling and they're not going to do that. That may be one reason why Joe's group is so successful, because there's a lot of people learning together. So that gives a comfort zone.
Yeah, and that thing of people knowing exactly what it's like to be at that beginning phase. Everyone remembers that, so they can support each other. Yeah.
So my second tip goes along a little bit with the knowing what style of learner you are. Because I tried in traditional classrooms to learn languages using memorization, grammar, all the traditional things. At this point, now that I'm this far into the process, I just have to accept that's not how I learn. So my advice would be, for example, if I am teaching you this word pen, if I just tell you this is a pen, your chances of remembering it are super low. If I just tell you the word in, for example, Spanish and then in English, very low. If I show it to you, those chances raise a little. If I have you physically write with the pen as you're saying pen, it goes up a little more. If I make you laugh while I'm doing something with the pen, it raises even more. If there was a way you could taste it,
Your flavor face, I think.
I mean, you can try feeling it. Every sense that you involve in learning boost your chances of remembering it. So the videos that I have on YouTube, I try to take you with me as I do things so that it's like you're experiencing them. Because I don't know that sitting and memorizing a list of words works for anybody. And I highly
Look at
recommend.
me, I forgot all my Latin.
Exactly.
We
I
learned
forgot
more than
all my
2,000
French.
words.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, nothing. But I think if you can, the more senses you use, touch, sound, smell, and the more experiences you can use. If you're learning a verb, it's best to learn the verb doing the verb.
Yeah.
So if the verb is writing, then write as you're learning the word. If you're watching cooking videos, do the things with the person. Right now, that's my big project. I'm trying to improve my Spanish by watching Spanish cooking videos. So if I chop the vegetables as they say the words for chopping, that increases my chances of learning and of remembering that word.
The theory, you actually need to hear a word between 5 and 16 times before you can remember and know and understand it.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting it in as much as
time.
possible in as many different ways as possible.
Yeah.
It's key.
And traditional classrooms do not in any way do that. You look at a word on a page.
They don't do that.
And looking back, I'm amazed that anybody can learn from those classes. You have to be super gifted to actually get a benefit from high school language classes. Those things are terrible.
Yeah.
Really, they're so
And
bad.
especially in Germany, it was bad. It was really bad. Yeah.
It was so bad here. I just remember, I just thought I was stupid. I thought I
Yeah.
just could not learn.
Yeah.
Because I tried to practice so hard at learning the French words, and I used computer programs, probably that I got illegally, to try and memorize the words, and all this work I put into it and no benefits.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it was amazing. When I started learning Spanish, I learned with a friend and her family, and I was
Mhm.
in their house cooking
Yep.
as they taught me the words for food and cooking.
Nice.
And I still remember those because
Can I ask you a
was
question about that?
Yeah.
When you were learning in school, were you
Yeah.
learning for life or for a test?
I wanted to learn. I wanted both. Because
So
I got a little French.
how was the classes set up?
Oh,
Was
the
it set
classes
up
were
so
set up for the test.
yes, and when you were cooking with your friend, it was set up so that you would learn for life,
So I
for
would
using
communicate.
it. Exactly. And that's a really big difference that a lot of teachers don't actually
True.
understand. They teach for the test instead of for life. And that's really dumb. I'm so okay. I used to correct all these exams, and I'm a censor. I'm not supposed to say that, but you're supposed to teach students how to live their life in this language or whatever subject you teach. I also taught biology and that kind of stuff. So for me, it was very important that they walked away with something that they could use for the rest of their life.
Right.
And then their grade is
relevant.
just a momentary like test. It shows how good are you right now under these circumstances, and most people are like scared out of their minds. So it very much depends on how are you tackling this. Are you learning this for your sake, and is it all set up to support you on this journey, or is it set up to support a test? I feel like that's a huge difference, because one will get you to actually learn the language, the other one will just give you a grade. And sure, then you're done with high school and you don't speak the language anymore, and then sure, that's not gonna help
what have you gotten?
Yeah, I also think like having the objective in mind, then you can also pick like it motivates you, and also you can pick like you can choose like I need, because I want to work using, for example, Japanese. I need to speak maybe faster, and maybe you can target more in the speaking area of the language. So I think that having an objective, as you say, Simone, it's a huge advantage. A huge advantage.
It's essential.
Yeah. And the whole thing, I mean, to me, language is for communication. That's what it's for. It's all about communication and getting a message, getting your thoughts to somebody else's, whether it's through a written form or through speaking, or receiving that message from reading or listening. And it's got to be about communication. And so learning for some sort of purpose that is related to communication, that's what it's about. If you're just learning it so you can pass a test, that's what I did all the way through high school. You don't get anything from that. It does nothing for you. You're going to forget it. And I remember teaching at university. I taught a university academic preparation course, and the students there, same thing. And these are very clever students, and they are, I did some research around this. They chose their own words to study, and they're still choosing words and go, oh, but it's okay because I got a good mark on the test. And then you test them on those words 3 or 4 weeks later, they've forgotten them again. Go, what about, but I passed all of it. Oh, choose words and this actually relates to one of the questions we had. Do you need to know how many words do you need to know? So that's the thing. You don't need to know all the words. You need to know the words that you need for communicating what you want to communicate. That's what you need.
Right. And there are people who can communicate more with 10 words than other people who know thousands. Because if you have
it depends how intelligent you are.
Right. That is true. Exactly. But really, with 10 words that are useful versus 1,000 that you've never used, that you've never spoken, 10 words and pointing is going to be more effective.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So guys, we have some questions that have come in.
Yes.
So
Go for it.
Joe, I think you had a question come from your group.
I've
What
had a
was
few
that?
actually. They've been sending them all in. But well, that was one of them. So Tro was asking, do you need to know all of the words to be able to speak well? And Tro, no, absolutely you do not.
No.
There are some fantastic lists around, well, for English, and I'm sure in other languages too, that show you the most important words that we use in speaking. Focus on those ones, get to know them really well. You need to know those words inside out so you can use them, and just focus on that small number. And once you've got those really well mastered, you're going to learn the words you need from, because of course, if your hobbies and your interests are different, you're going to need different words from what I need. So focus on those beginning ones, and then
you can actually Google the 50 most used nouns and verbs and such.
Yeah.
That's what I did for the German students, which is a really great idea, because then you know, okay, these are the most common words. So these are the ones we'll need to learn first, because like this is where we start.
Absolutely. So, ladies, check your newsletter.
I definitely recommend that.
A link exactly like that. Exactly that link. So there's a fantastic vocabulary learning exercises. Exactly. The useful ones.
Nice.
Learn the useful ones.
Yeah.
So that was one question from Tro.
I
Do
think
ladies have questions too?
I
think I've got a few.
The only one I got was about dialects. When you're learning a language that has a lot of dialects, how do you handle that? Like, for example, Spanish and Arabic both have a lot of, in Arabic, they're very distinctive dialects. In Spanish, they're distinctive, but other than, no offense to the Argentinians, the people from Argentina, but theirs seems to me to be the most distinctive, because there are a couple of letters they say really differently. But I'm curious how, for me, the way I handle it is I pick a place and act as if I'm from there. And so when I'm learning, I try to learn, like for me in Spanish, it's Mexico. I learned Spanish starting initially from a Mexican family. So I try and ask, like when they say, oh, you say this word differently in a bunch of countries, I say, how do you say it in Mexico? And I try to just do that. In Arabic, I haven't chosen a country yet. So I'm still working on that, but that's my advice. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a really great idea, because I mean, in English, in Europe, at least we have the same thing, because there's American, there's British, there's Scottish, and then there's Irish. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge difference.
And New Zealand.
And I mean, and New Zealand, exactly, and Australian. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to go about that. And
that's true.
The place you live in, or the one that you will have the most connection with, that is the one I would choose and stick with. So for you, Mexico is the closest Spanish-speaking country, and that's where I guess most of your Spanish-speaking friends are from as well. So
I have a variety actually, but
okay. So I mean, but that just makes a lot of sense. Also, that's where you are most likely to go to, actually, like physically.
Right. Yeah, because it's closer.
Yeah.
Just in logistics.
I think it is that thing though, as well, as when we need to remember that those dialects, like people sort of talk about British English or American English, but within both of those countries, the range of accents and vocabulary that is different in different geographical, it's huge. There's an enormous range. So to me, I think as a language learner, it's quite good to try and find something that's quite a fairly common one. So really sort of a very standardized, common, not really, really high class, or not one particular area or one particular ethnic group that speaks that way, and try and find something that's fairly commonly used, and then it will be understandable for people from nearly any country. You know, most people, like whether it's an Australian accent or a New Zealand accent or Canadian accent or US or British, unless it's a very, very strong regional accent, it's pretty understandable. So I don't think it matters too much, but I wouldn't go choosing, like, you know, Janet's idea of, oh, well, where do you want to come from? I wouldn't go choosing some tiny little village somewhere like in the north of England or something. Go, oh, I'm going to learn that accent. I love it, and I know people from there because
like the Northern Irish.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's my advice.
I've noticed in a lot of language groups, they talk about like, oh, how do you say this word differently? And I usually don't put my learning energy toward those conversations. If it's something important to me, then yeah, I will. Like, my passion is cooking, so if it's about cooking, I'm gonna learn it, and probably all the variations. But unless it's cooking or something very important to me, I usually just let those conversations go past me. I don't try to put any energy into learning the ones that are said differently in a specific place. Like, how often am I going to use the word for skateboard in the Chilean dialect? Like, I'm not.
All the time.
I don't even skateboard.
You just take it up. You'd be great on Janet.
Sure.
Skating with Janet. I can see the title.
That'll be my next YouTube video. You know, my last one I made, I did hiking and I twisted both of my ankles making the video.
No.
So that video is going up tomorrow.
That's you dedication.
Can you imagine if I did a skateboarding?
But
I would be hospitalized for a skateboarding video. It would be terrible.
Oh, man.
So, Joe, what about one other question from your
question?
group?
Let me see. What have we got? So, Haja is asking about the most effective way to learn vocabulary, but I think we kind of covered that. We've sort of talked about choosing the right words to learn, choosing words that are interesting to you, finding your best way of flashcards.
For me, it was also a huge help because, well, I moved to Germany when I was 2, and then I learned German and English. And then when I was 6, we moved back to Denmark. Then I forgot my German. And then when I was 12, we moved back to Germany. So I still remember like keywords like fork, plate, chair, but I couldn't build a sentence. And that was right after, it was like 2002, 2001. So obviously it was a lot different. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have all these things. So I watched The Nanny nonstop in German because I knew all the episodes from back in Denmark.
Hilarious. Why wouldn't you?
It was amazing. I love Fran Fine, Fran Drescher, whatever. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yes.
She's amazing in her Yenta. Oh my gosh.
I know. So I recorded a lot of the episodes and watched it again and again and again because I had already seen the episodes a million times in English, but with Danish subtitles. So I knew what it was all about. And that way, a lot of the words that I didn't know helped kind of like build and form because I would hear it and see it. And like, so find some kind of like TV show that you know in your native language and watch it in a language that you're learning. Like, but find an easy TV show. Don't go watching some documentary because like, it needs to be something like kind of rom-com comedy-ish stuff.
Anything that's physical is good. I recommend Phineas and Ferb a lot to students because there's so much that you can see of what they're doing.
Because, true.
Very interesting.
People seem to really like learning English from Friends.
Yeah, Friends. I've got some people in my group, they just watch Friends all the time. It's great.
I know. It's amazing.
It's really funny. Hey, I've got a few more questions, but I think what I might do from the ladies in my group, what I might do is I'll jump in live later on, some later on this week, and I'll answer those questions for you because I know we're running out of time a wee bit. It's morning for Jessica, so she'll be busy with
in the middle of the night for Simone.
It's like 11 p.m.
Well, I know that some of the the women in my group, it's probably about 1 a.m. for you by now. So thank you for watching, ladies. Thank you, Khadija. So what we'll do is we will absolutely, you know, for my ladies, I'll jump in later and I'll answer some of your questions live.
Or if you want us to answer, if they want to listen other ideas, maybe also in the next slide, maybe you can.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do it next time. Yeah.
So our next live like this will be on September the 28th, same time, and we will be talking about language apps.
Yeah,
so if you have any questions about that, make sure you let us know, so that we got a tip from Melly on here. I didn't see that. Melly said, kids shows are the best to learn a new language. Great tip, Melly. Thank you. We're going to talk about language learning apps. If you have questions about that, absolutely send us your questions so that we can be working toward that. But this was awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Thank you guys for watching and sending us. Thanks everybody for sending us smileys and hearts and comments in the text. That was awesome.
Arigatou gozaimasu, minasan.
Yeah, very, very nice. So no, it was fun. Thank you so much for organizing this, ladies. It was really, really fun to do this with you.
Very cool.
Looking forward to the next one. It'll be lovely.
Yeah. So, cool. Jessica, do you just take us off the live? Is that how this? I've never ended a live before.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you everybody for being here.
Thanks,
Thank you very much for your comments, and see you until the next time.
Bye.